Before starting, I would like to mention a couple of quotes that were very interesting for me, and they encouraged me to do this study. One of them was said by the Sasha Dratwa, who is the IDF spokesperson for interactive media. He said that computers and keyboards are the weapons, Facebook and Twitter are the battlefields. And David Dennon, the Israeli member of the parliament, also said that Facebook pages have as much impact as a tank and sometimes even more. So new media have afforded the Israeli-Palestinian conflict a new context. This study examined the Israeli Twitter campaign. I will explain later why Twitter and why the Gaza War 2014. Basically, I was planning to study the Gaza War 2012, and then during preparing the study, the Gaza War 2014 occurred. So Dr. Maya and I decided that we have to update all the results, especially that the findings now are, the data are now available and I can access them easily. So the study demonstrated that Israel used social media during the Gaza war to conduct PSYOPs. PSYOPs is psychological operations. I use PSYOPs throughout the presentation, so you know. Social media war raged during the Gaza war 2014. It was an asymmetric social media war. So I decided to study the Israeli online Twitter campaign, not Hamas, for many reasons. One of them is that Israel and Hamas, they have different media realities. So Israel, they have an online presence which is sophisticated, multilingual and consistent. They have a unit called the IDF spokesperson unit, which is responsible for all the public relations and the media content productions. However, Hamas, most of its Twitter pages were suspended during the war. Its Facebook pages also were deleted. Not only for that reason, but also because Israel poses a media siege on Gaza. All the telephone and internet connections, they have to go through the Israeli backbone. Even they control the access, the flow of the connection, and the power of the connection. This study is more interested with the official use of social media, not the non-official or the resistance use of social media. It's interested in exploring the official state use at times of war, how Israel, a democratic state, officially relied on social media to market its military and political goals. Why is the study important? The research area on PSYOPs and social media is still nascent. There's no much research done on that. And propaganda, you know, the propaganda you relied on media to be disseminated throughout history. Like, first of all, it relied on public speeches and coins, then through radio, TV, and now it's social media. Most of the literature on social media, it relied on the non-state use of social media and the power to mobilize for political and social movements, like the Arab Spring, the Iranian election 2009, the Greece demonstration in Greece in 2008, and many other movements. Also, there are few literature on social media's power in military conflicts. Also, the social media has become an integral part. This study demonstrated that social media has become an integral part of psychological warfare, and demonstrated that it's used by a state actor during military conflict. Israel's tendency to engage in multiple military conflicts. The findings of this study assess the power of social media to conduct effective PSYOPs in future clashes conducted by Israel. I chose the Twitter account, the English Twitter account, at IDF spokesperson, because it's inclusive of all the media content, all the visual and audiovisual material produced by the IDF spokesperson unit. And because also it's the largest Israeli online venue. It has 400K followers, maybe now more. Like I checked that a few days ago. And also the English is international language, and it's spoken by the three target audiences: the home audience, the enemy audience, and the international audience. Why it's PSYOPs, not propaganda, not psychological warfare? Historically, persuasion has been referred to in different ways. So it's propaganda, and all these terms, they mean persuasion, and there's no fundamental difference between them. There are strategies that complement conventional warfare. After the Nazi success in using propaganda, the Americans, they preferred using PSYOPs. And now they attribute propaganda with the enemy lies and misleading information. However, PSYOPs, they define it as the planned operations that convey selected information indicators to foreign target audiences to influence their emotions, motives, objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments, organization groups, and individuals. Okay, Israel believes that its problems throughout history it's been linked to the lack of data on its right of to exist and justification of its military actions carried out to defend itself. Basically, two main incidents the Israeli image severed a severe setback. One during the 2006 war on Lebanon, and the other was the Gaza flotilla incident. During the 2006 war, they said that Israel lost the PSYOPs war, and that and that Hezbollah was coined as the master of the new media. Israel wasn't able to justify its operation, neither to the home audience nor to the international audience, because of the high death toll, civilian death toll, and also because it did not meet its military objectives. Also, during the Gaza flotilla incident, the Israeli military killed 9 Turkish activists on the Gaza flotilla, on the Gaza ship, which was six ships, I think, carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza. So also, that was a main incident that really affected the Israeli public relations. After that, the Israeli campaign decided to update their media strategies, to introduce new departments, to engage new media. The Israeli military body in charge of conducting PSYOPs, which is called the Malat, was reformed and re-established to explore new ways of conducting PSYOPs. So Israel made drastic changes during the Gaza War 2008. It was able to justify its operations through social media, and the videos of aerial footage and video blogs received more than 2 million viewers. So that was the result to launch the new media desk. In January 2010, the Internet and New Media Department was launched. So during the Gaza War 2012, Israel was ready to fight what many journalists called the Twitter war. The Israeli military was ready on their computers and to fight the new social media war. They tweeted, after they killed the Hamas senior military leader Ahmed al-Jabali, they tweeted, "We recommend that no Hamas operatives, whether low-level or senior leaders, show their faces above ground in the days ahead." However, the Qassam Brigade, the Hamas military wing, they replied, "Our blessed hands will reach your leaders and soldiers wherever they are." Heemsbergen and Lindgren 2014 is a study that was published in June 2014 while I was doing my study on the Gaza War 2014, and they were the first empirical study on how a democratic state actor used social media during war for public diplomacy, propaganda, and transparency. However, this study did not go in depth on how the Israeli military executed social media campaign or used PSYOPs to reach their political and military goals. Therefore, my study asks the following questions. What are the main themes of the Israeli military Twitter campaign during the Gaza War 2014? Why did Israel choose these themes? How did Israel structure the messages of these themes? Why are the Israeli Twitter messages considered PSYOPs or propaganda? And did Israel achieve the tactical operation and strategic goals of its Twitter PSYOPs campaign during the Gaza War 2014? I use the qualitative content analysis because it's a method that's concerned with the meaning of the text and answers the question of why these texts were produced and how they were produced. Quantifying the occurrence of certain words is irrelevant to the main objective of my study. So this paper adopted the model of the U.S. Army Manual, which is the most updated manual on PSYOPs, Army Manual on PSYOPs, And this manual adopted the Harold Lasswell, who is a political scientist and communication theorist, basic communication model as a theoretical foundation of its SIPES campaign. Who says what, to whom, in which channel, and to what effect. After planning and deciding on the objectives of the SIPES campaign, the target audiences are detected and they are analyzed. The target audience, the enemy, the home enemy, and the international audience. The SIPES messages and themes, they are determined, and certain appeals and persuasion techniques are used. I will explain that later. And then the best media patterns or means of delivery are chosen. I will start with the main themes my study found. One of the main themes was that the operation is inevitable. Most of the messages, they wanted to say that Israel has conducted this operation in order to defend and restore its security and its right to exist. They wanted to address the home audience, and they wanted to tell them that this is an inevitable operation because it's an existential war. And for example, one of the videos showed commanders lecturing soldiers about their duties, their beliefs, and their objectives. They used a lot of persuasion techniques and tactics. One of them is the loyalty and the self-interest appeals. Actually, I cannot explain all the appeals, but I can give you a few.
Helga, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you should just name the themes.
Yeah.
And then if people want more details, we can ask them later, because otherwise,
It's gonna take forever. Yeah, okay.
I mean, I just know because I've read them all.
Okay, the other theme was that Israelis are victims of terror also. Like one of the infographics, I give you one example of the infographics. The Israelis who live near Gaza have only 15 seconds to reach a bomb shelter, while others use these 15 seconds to do normal activities such as drink water, tie shoes, send a text message. They were trying to address the international audience that the Israelis, they are victims of terror. They concentrated on the family and childhood concepts. Like tonight, Israeli families huddle in their shelters as rockets fall across the country. Okay. The third theme was Israel is a Western democracy. We are together fighting a war on terrorism. Israel insisted throughout the campaign that it's a Western democracy, and that it is fighting with Western countries the war on terrorism. One of the tweets, for example, discussed how Hamas terror cells received advanced training in Malaysia to parachute into Israel to kidnap and murder civilians. Israel was trying to show that it's not a sexist, not a racist country. Most of the messages, they engaged women, and they engaged soldiers with African roots. Also, they mentioned messages that they accept homosexuality, in contrast to Hamas, who excuse people who are gays or homosexual. Hamas is part of an international axis of terror by focusing on its relationship with Iran, and then with ISIS, after the beheading of the American journalist James Foley. So they mentioned a tweet that said, the Al-Qassam brigades say we are continuing our struggle, Allah is our goal, the Prophet is our leader, jihad is our way, and death for Allah is our most exalted wish. The fifth theme was Israel wants peace, Hamas wants war, that Hamas always rejects all the ceasefires, however Israel accepts them. Hamas started a massive attack 1 hour after a ceasefire was announced. Theme 6, Hamas uses civilians as human shields. Basically, most of the campaign was trying to propagate this message. The Israeli operation is legal because Israel was trying to prove that the high death toll among civilians was legal, was not because Hamas, when Hamas uses civilians as human shields, Israel has a legitimate, all the people, they become legitimate military targets under international law. And also this theme was mainly targeting the international audiences because of the accusations that Israel violated international law. The ethics of the Israeli military saving civilians is a priority. They always mentioned that they were trying to avoid civilian death, and they are building hospitals, field hospitals for civilians, and they are trying to provide them with all the help, and they were trying to avoid to do all the measures to avoid civilian death. Humanizing the Israeli military, they were always trying to mention all the names and the stories and the background of the Israeli military soldiers. The soldiers were allowed to talk and express their feelings throughout the war. Theme 10, Hamas exploits the people of Gaza. Many messages discuss how Hamas, they take the money of people of Gaza in order to build the tunnels. Theme 11, Israeli accomplishments. This theme was targeting the enemy audience, the home audience and the enemy audience. The home audience in order to maintain the home support, the home front support for the operation, and for the enemy audience in order to tell them that they have to stop to the non-combatants to stop the war, and for the combatants also to know that there is no way they could win the war. They used infographics and high-end videos professionally filmed and edited. The infographics, they were very sophisticated and creative, and they simplified the data. They used statistics, numbers. They could be easily transferred on social media. And the high-end videos also, they used native speakers to do the voiceover. And also they used very close-ups on the eyes and lips of the military soldiers in order to humanize them and make them closer to the audience. My assessment, the study's assessment of the war, is that Israel did not reach its objectives for many reasons. The major obstacles that the Israeli Sabbath campaign faced was, first, the growing number of Hamas rockets fired at Israel throughout the operation. The rockets continued to rain down on Israel until the end of the war. So that was one of the main reasons the Sabbath's objective did not really reach, wasn't probably successful. The second reason was the high death toll and the large number of the Palestinian civilians, and that was illustrated on three main incidents. The killing of the 4 boys aged between 9 and 11 from Al-Bakr family on the Gaza beach. The second was Al-Shuja'iyya battle, where more than 65 Palestinian civilians were killed. And the third was the shelling of the UN schools, where 3 of them actually killed more than 46 civilians, including 10 UN staff. The third reason or obstacle was the increasing number of the dead Israeli soldiers during the ground operation, because that would actually take the Israeli audience or the Israeli home front back to the bitter memories of the 2006 war, and Israel didn't want that. They didn't want to, or maybe they didn't want to lose the home front support. So basically, that was the main findings that the study found. Have any questions?
Well, they can't ask questions.
No, let her go.
Helga?
Just in case we lose her, so that we can get her
We're
questions.
gonna, did she need to be facing Rueda? I mean, that seems to be more important than,
Facing us.
or them. Helga, are you with us?
I'm still here.
Okay, so we're gonna start with you just in case we have an internet problem or anything. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, but you guys, you can feel free to jump in.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Okay. So, thank you, first of all. I thought it was very clear that you've done a lot of work on it, right? I think you do a wonderful job, actually, sort of splitting up the entire, sort of like the media theory, propaganda theory. You have, I don't know, almost half of it is entirely sort of the context of what it is that you're looking at, approaching it from Laswell and different kinds of approaches. So I thought that was really well done. And it was clear that you had lots of, that you've gone through all of the social media examples and then drew out all these themes, which I thought was as well. So that was a wonderful job, right, in that sense. I guess, I mean, I have a number of questions about the text or the research itself, but I also have a question that's maybe a little bit larger at first, is what do you want to do with this now that you've gotten this far? Are you seeking to publish this somehow? Do you want to complicate it? Do you want to, I'm just sort of curious as to what objective do you have with this research before I...
Maybe publish it later because the findings there are really interesting, and as I told you, as I said in the presentation, that the literature on social media and propaganda, it's still very nascent. There's no a lot of literature on that, so it would be really interesting to publish that and to add to the book.
PhD program as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Can I follow up on your question, Helga?
Sure.
I mean, just along the same lines, and as Helga said, you obviously done an extensive job, especially on the theoretical framework and on the literature. I mean, I can use this as a reader for at least 2 weeks of a graduate class in terms of at least the literature, and the findings were quite extensive and interesting. I'll go into some other details later. The one part that I want to ask is, based on these findings, these themes that you found, your final conclusion, how does this inform us about the theory and the literature that you have advanced?
So social media has become the study demonstrated that social media become a very integral tool of psychological warfare now. And it's started to be used as a propaganda tool by state actors, which is Israel, one of the main countries to engage in military conflicts in the world. Actually, I don't know, like maybe, and it's like the themes that the study has analyzed. Were very interesting, actually, that how social media and the way social media can be used in order to conduct psyops. Like, it's very creative, very new. They can reach wider audiences, and everyone can read them.